Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our Tenant and Property Owner Collaborative Virtual Workshop. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We're waiting for some more attendees to join us. We had over 90 register for this workshop, so we wanted to make sure we at least get a good chunk of that 90 on board, so we'll start in just a few minutes. Si necesita interpretación en español, hago clic en el globo en la esquina inferior izquierda y seleccione español. And we'll be right with you in just a few. Thanks. Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Maru Haklense, and I am the Assistant Community Development Director here at the City of Ventura. With me is our team, Rachel West with the Housing Services Division, as well as Leona Rollins, Housing Services Manager with the Housing Services Division in the Community Development Department. We're going to get started with our presentation. This is being recorded. And si necesita interpretación en español, haga clic en el globo en la esquina inferior izquierda y seleccione español. And with that, Rachel, please take it away.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Just some important notes for tonight's workshop. As Maruha mentioned, recording is in progress. And then we will be able to post this video at a later time as well. We'll also be doing a series of questions towards the end of the presentation today. So the polling questions will pop up on the right side of your screen. We will do a practice one in just a few seconds. And then on the right side of the screen, there will also be a little submit button that we have highlighted right here. Please note that once you do hit submit, you can no longer edit or change your responses. So just be mindful of that before you do click that. There will be a series of multiple choice questions as well as short answer responses. For those multiple choice questions, we will kind of share those results. However, for the short answer responses, staff will be collecting those and entering that data, and then we'll share the overall results at the end of all of our workshops. There is no live Q&A tonight, and chats and microphones are disabled. However, if you do have any questions, feel free to email myself, Maruha, or Leona. We will share our emails. On our city website under Housing Services, there is a workshop webpage as well, and there is a section at the bottom of the page where you can click into it and also add additional feedback. That's really in relation to the workshop overall and your overall thoughts on all the topics that we'll be speaking about tonight. Maruha, do you want to start the poll and see if that works?
Sure. I'm going to open a poll. This is one of our multiple choice options, just so you can get familiar with the platform. And then that will be followed by a PowerPoint presentation and then additional survey questions. So I'm opening the poll right now.
And for each of the questions, there will be around 5 minutes, especially for those short answer responses. However, if everyone answers the questions before the 5 minutes, we will definitely move on to the next question as we're going through these different polling questions.
That is correct. So I have about 75% of participants have taken the survey. I'm going to give it a few more, a little bit of time here to get our participants to respond. I have a couple still in progress. Thank you for your patience. Okay, I'm not seeing any movement on 6 individuals, so I'm going to close this poll, and I will share with you what the poll looks like. Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much. And we'll move on to the next slide. And Leona is going to take it over from here. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leona Rollins, and I'm the Housing Services Manager for the City of Ventura. And tonight we're going to be going over our agenda before we get started with our presentation. So tonight we will be reviewing applicable state and local legislation review. We'll talk about current housing rights within the City of Ventura. We'll then discuss current housing rights in other jurisdictions. We will then have a discussion regarding regulatory framework for housing rights in the city. We'll have a polling feedback exercise, and then we'll talk about next steps in the process. So just a little bit of background information. We have the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act, which was enacted in 1995. Essentially, the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act limits jurisdictions from establishing rent control on certain types of residential properties. These properties include single-family homes, condominiums, as well as other residential developments constructed after February 1st, 1995. Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act allows property owners to establish initial rental rates for new tenants, and that's also commonly referred to as vacancy decontrol. The next bill that we have is California Assembly Bill 1482, which went into effect on January 1st, 2020, which limits annual rent increases to 5% plus the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI, with the maximum being 10%. So as of August 1st, 2024, due to July 31st, 2025, rental increases throughout Ventura County are capped at 8.8%, excluding the cities of Oxnard and Ojai. AB 1482 provides just cause eviction protections to tenants who have lived at the property for more than 1 year. There are exceptions that they do allow for tenants to be terminated for false evictions. And common fault evictions can include things such as non-payment of rent, lease violations, or property damage. And they also offer no-fault evictions with relocation assistance. And typically, we see no-fault evictions taking place in situations where an owner or their immediate family member would like to move into the property. They have a government order to do like substantial remodel or demolition, or they're paid to substantially remodel the property on their own accord. The next bill is California Senate Bill 567, which went into effect earlier this year on April 1st, 2024, which strengthened components of AB 1482 and allows for stronger enforcement. It ensures essentially that property owners are following through with the reasons why they are evicting a tenant under a just cause reason. If a landlord or property owner does not have a just cause reason to terminate their tenant, they must offer that previous tenant the same lease terms and rental terms that they previously had. There are enforcement mechanisms against property owners if they demand or accept any type of incentives from their tenants. And if they are evicting a tenant for a substantial remodel, the property owner must have proof of plans, permits, and/or contracts prior to the eviction notice being served. The language in SB 567 is very similar to the City of Ventura's current just cause eviction for demolition and substantial remodel ordinance, which was approved by City Council on May 23rd, 2022. The next bill is California Assembly Bill 12. AB 12 went into effect on July 1st, 2024, and it essentially relates to security deposits and caps security deposits to only 1 month of rent. There are exceptions to this bill for property owners that have no more than 2 residential rental properties that collectively include no more than 4 units. So for example, if a property owner has 2 duplexes, which equates to 4 units, they are still allowed to collect up to 2 months of rent and security deposits from prospective tenants. Some local jurisdictions and their respective housing rights. So in 2022 and 2023, respectively, the City of Oxnard and the City of Ojai passed their own rent stabilization ordinance and just cause tenant protection ordinances. And through these ordinances, they have capped annual rent increases to 4% for multifamily residential properties. It limits the grounds for eviction for most tenancies, and it does require relocation assistance for no-fault evictions. As of today, for both the City of Oxnard and the City of Ojai, if you are terminated a tenant for a just cause or no fault reason, you are required to offer them 2 months of rent as relocation assistance, or $5,000, whichever is greater. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel.
Tenant and property owner rights. So the City of Ventura currently partners with the Housing Rights Center to enforce local, state, and federal regulations, which include Assembly Bill 1482, Assembly Bill 12, the City of Ventura's local just cause eviction for demolition and substantial remodel for residential properties ordinance, as well as other local, state, and federal housing laws, including Senate Bill 567. So this current partnership with the HRC focuses on the legal services information as well as landlord and tenant mediation services. And this is for both tenant and property owners. So if there is an issue on any side, both an owner of the property as well as a tenant could call the HRC. Next slide, please. There are a number of jurisdictions with no local protections in the state of California. So currently 445 out of 482 jurisdictions do not have any local form of rent stabilization or tenant protections. So the ones highlighted in orange are the jurisdictions that are closest to us. So you'll see this highlighted throughout the next few slides. Next slide, please. And then there are also jurisdictions with limited local protections. And so there are 8 that have just cause evictions. This includes the city of San Diego, city of San Rafael, city of Palo Alto, city of Glendale, as well as the others listed. Next slide, please. And then there are 29 cities in California that have both local rent stabilization as well as tenant protections. So a number of them are a little bit more south and then some also north. And then we also do have the city of Ojai and city of Oxnard that are in Ventura County. And Leona did mention their regulations a little bit earlier. Next slide, please. So the regulatory framework for housing rights. So housing rights are measures designed to safeguard the rights and well-being of tenants and property owners. And these can vary, but a lot of the common options include anti-harassment, just cause evictions, legal services, rent stabilization, and relocation assistance. Next slide, please. So we will be going over the following: anti-harassment and legal services, displacement and evictions, property owner resources and rental registry, rent stabilization, security deposits, and right to purchase, as well as open comments. And those will be our main discussion topics for tonight. And we would love to hear your feedback specifically on these different topics. So as mentioned earlier, we do have that online survey. We'll have some poll questions that are relating to these. Feel free to email us as well. And the bulk of what we'll be talking about in this is what we do, what the state does, what we could do, as well as pros and cons. And the pros and cons that are listed are just a couple. There are, probably hundreds for each of these, but we just kind of wanted to get some of the possibilities up there. But of course, there are always going to be additional ones. And if you would like to share additional pros or cons that you see for each of these topics, we would love to see that as well. Next slide, please. So the anti-harassment ordinance. What is an anti-harassment ordinance? This is a type of measure that would that is laws that protect both tenants and property owners from harassment. And some of the types of harassment that tenants might possibly see is that the property owner is withholding repairs or refusing to accept rent, giving out notices without any reason, just kind of as a way to make threats, or just anything that tries to force them out of their unit. Property owners, of course, also experience harassment, and some of these would be the tenant refusing to pay rent, the tenant making false complaints that aren't actually there, like there needs to be repairs when there really doesn't need to be repairs, violating the lease in any type of way, or just causing unnecessary damages just to kind of get back at the property owner. What is required in the city? As of today, the city does not currently have an anti-harassment ordinance. And some options of what the city could do. Do nothing, adopt an anti-harassment ordinance similar to the city of Los Angeles. And city of Los Angeles is specifically, it prohibits property owners from harassing tenants by actions such as removing housing services, withholding repairs, or refusing to accept rent payment. Or expand the Housing Rights Center for additional legal services in conjunction with an anti-harassment ordinance. Next slide, please. So some of the pros and cons associated with this, some of the pros would provide additional protections for tenants and property owners outside of protections afforded through federal and state regulations. It could also provide tenants and property owners with an additional mechanisms to protect themselves from harassment and other forms of unfair treatment. And some of these cons could be that there are already state and federal and state regulations to protect against some forms of harassment, like discrimination. And there could be a cost associated with the ordinance if tenants and property owners do not have the financial means to pursue legal actions on their own against the other party. Next slide, please. Additional legal services assistance. So what are legal services? It's an access to a range of legal help for both tenants and property owners. It can range from providing legal advice and mediation services to providing an attorney for legal representation in a lawsuit or eviction hearing. And what does the city do now? The city currently provides resources with the Housing Rights Center under a contract for legal information and mediation services for tenants and landlords. The city does not currently provide any type of counseling services. So if that does have to go to court, that means that either the property owner or tenant have to go alone, because we don't have that additional service right now. What we do have is that specifically that legal information and that mediation services between the landlords and tenants to try to prevent it from actually going into court. So what could the city do? The city could eliminate existing legal services, which provides the mediation to tenants and landlords, or they could expand the contract with the Housing Rights Center for additional legal services, including that counsel for evictions and other court-related items for both tenants and landlords. Next slide, please. Some pros and cons associated with additional legal services would include a pro would be additional resources for both tenants and property owners who are seeking legal advice and or representation in legal matters, such as going to court for evictions or lease violations, as well as providing tenants and property owners with a free or low-cost service to assist them in numerous housing matters such as displacement, eviction, harassment, lease violations, and more. And some of the cons that are associated with it is it could be an additional cost to the city of Ventura to expand these resources through HRC, or if we seek out a different local legal aid organization, as well as that some of these services tend to be for programs to assist those who are in a certain income threshold, so not everyone might qualify for this. Next slide, please. Additional displacement and eviction ordinances. So what is displacement? It's when an individual loses their housing and is forced to relocate due to property owners selling the property, natural disasters, property improvements requiring a move, or substandard conditions. So a lot of displacement is usually when it's no fault of the tenants and it's either a natural disaster or something to do with the property owner. What is an eviction? A legal process through the courts where judgment is made to terminate the rights of an existing tenant due to lack of payment, lease violations, owner occupancy, or substantial remodel or demolition. So besides the substantial remodel or demolition part, the rest of those are usually a at-fault eviction because it's either lacking of the payment or violating the lease in some way to where the property owner is evicting the tenant. And so what does the city do now? We do currently have the just cause evictions for demolition and substantial remodels to residential properties. And that means a property owner must obtain permits and other supporting documentation before serving their tenants with a termination notice to demolish or substantially remodel the property. So pretty much just before, instead of just being able to immediately evict someone, if you are planning on making any remodeling to the properties, you do have to get the permits out, and that's just to ensure that it is actually moving forward with the remodel or the demolition. And the property owner is required to provide their tenants with relocation assistance, which is equal to 2 months of the tenant's rent. Next slide, please. So what could the city do? No change to existing regulations, so do nothing in addition to what we are currently doing. Require relocation assistance for displacements of tenants, similar to cities that require a minimum of 2 months of rent or $5,000 in relocation assistance, whichever is the higher price. And both Ohio and Oxnard are examples of who have the 2 months of rent or the $5,000, whichever is higher. Or adopt our own local ordinance to reflect SB 567. So again, that one is to create stronger just cause evictions to ensure that tenants and property owners are abating by state regulations. Next slide, please. Some of the pros would be that by expanding our ordinance, the city could reduce displacement, evictions, and prevent homelessness in the community. By expanding the ordinance, the city could also limit rent increases in the community, or the city could require additional relocation assistance for displaced tenants. And then some of the cons related to this one include that by limiting rent increases, property owners may not receive a return on their investment and could cause postponement of property maintenance. And requiring additional relocation assistance may create a financial burden for mom and pop property owners. Next slide, please. Property owner resources and rental registry. So what are property owner resources? This includes online portals, programs, services, advice sites, conferences, events, and local associations. And what is a rental registry? It's a database of rental projects that includes detailed information about the property owner and the rental property itself. What does the city do now? The housing services staff attends various conferences to learn of current legislation and programs that affect real property. And we do not currently have a rental registry within the city of Ventura. But housing services staff also puts on a number of different forums. So these, as well as we also do just additional educational forums throughout the year. What could the city do? Do nothing or implement a rental registry to assist with compliance of both tenant and property owners with applicable legislations. Next slide, please. And the pros and cons in relation to these is it could streamline compliance for property owners, improve housing for residents, improve accountability, and increase transparency. And some of those cons could be privacy concerns with the data safety and protection, cost for registry maintenance and oversight, as well as inability to raise rent for unforeseen circumstances, so structural improvements. And I'm going to pass this one back on to Leona. Thank you.
Yes, so we're now going to talk about rent stabilization ordinances. So what is rent stabilization? So rent stabilization is a policy that limits the amount of rent that can be increased each year. The goal is to increase housing affordability and stability by protecting tenants from excessive rent increases, which helps reduce the risk of homelessness and displacement. What does the city do now? The city does not currently have an ordinance or any policy regarding rent stabilization. And what could the city do? The city could do nothing other than following applicable state laws. We can also provide legal guidance to tenants and landlords on allowable rent increases. Or the city could create an ordinance similar to other jurisdictions that limits rent increases on eligible properties. Some of the pros and cons to a rent stabilization ordinance could include affordable housing. Rent increases are more manageable for tenants. It can lead to tenant stability to help them stay in their homes for longer periods of time. Community continuity, it can help maintain socioeconomic diversity within a city. It protects vulnerable tenants from large rent increases. Similarly, some of the cons can include it discourages investment in residential properties. Housing quality may decline over time. It may lead to financial hardships for property owners. It may also cause tenant turnover at a much faster rate. It can reduce property taxes, which can reduce the amount of government revenue that a city may obtain. Next, we have security deposit regulations. And what is a security deposit? A security deposit is money that is collected by a property manager or their affiliate at the start of a rental lease to cover potential damages or other costs related to the property. Measures to address security deposits include regulations on the maximum deposit amounts, what deposits can be used for, and how deposits are returned to the actual tenant. What does the city do now? As of right now, the city does not have an ordinance in relation to security deposits. What the city could do is that we can do nothing other than follow the state law without an ordinance. We also have current city legal services can provide property owner and tenant mediation services along with fair housing information and assistance. Or we could create an ordinance that follows state law or strengthens state law. However, there are pros and cons to this regulation as well. Some of the pros for security deposit regulations include it assures adherence to Assembly Bill 12, where security deposits are limited to 1 month of rent. Another pro is that it has exceptions for owners with less than 2 rental properties. It can lower upfront costs to tenants, and it also can lead to a greater access to housing. Some of the cons do include it could have reduced property owner protections, less of a financial recourse to cover property damage or destruction, potential rent increases to offset lower upfront costs by receiving less security deposits. There are concerns with mom and pop property owners, and there's also the potential for property abuse. So the right to purchase ordinance essentially is what is right to purchase? Right to purchase is when a property owner is required to give the tenant the option to purchase the property they are renting within a specific time frame. However, it's important to know that no property owner is obligated to sell their rental property to their tenant. Right to purchase only comes into play is if the rental property is going onto the market and the tenant will be interested in purchasing said property. What does the city do now? The city currently does not have an ordinance in relation to the right to purchase option, and the city could do absolutely nothing or look into different options for the right to purchase opportunities. Some of the pros and cons to a right to purchase ordinance can be more affordable for existing tenants to purchase the home they have been renting. It could create financial security with home ownership and breaking down class barriers. It could be possibly seen as an asset for tenants so they can build equity in the home over time. And also could possibly benefit property owners by having potential buyers lined up. Some of the cons could include the lack of affordable homes available on the market and the lack of a rental stock in a community. Tenants may also face obstacles when trying to exercise their right to purchase. It could possibly have potential disagreements and litigation about the process. It also does not guarantee the purchase of the property, and also can be seen as possibly unfavorable if the home value drops. So now I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Community Development Director, Maruha, who is going to talk about our feedback, polling, and comment exercise.
Thanks, Leona. Thank you, everybody. So I'm going to start our polling exercise. These are all going to be saved and then cataloged and shared with our decision makers moving forward with all the data we collect from all these workshops. Again, please take note of the email there before you, lrollins@cityoventura.ca.gov. You can email additional comments thereafter or anytime over the next few weeks if you think of any other ideas or concerns that we could include in our data collection. You can also email me, which is mclincy, my first initial last name here on the WebEx at cityoventura.ca.gov, and also Rachel West at rwest@cityoventura.ca.gov. So we're going to start with a couple, actually 2 or 3 multiple choice questions, and then we're going to proceed to the short answer questions. Again, each question has a total of 5 minutes. As soon as everybody's done, I will close it and share the poll answers with you all, with the exception of the short narratives, because that would be quite a bit of narrative to read, and we'll keep those cataloged for future use and publication on our website. We will redact any personal information associated with those comments when they do go online, just so you know, so don't worry about that. And let's get started. So our next multiple choice question, I'm going to open the poll. Do you think the city should pursue local tenant protections? And just on my side, I have a polling status of not started, in progress, and finished, and it gives me a percentage of where everybody's at, so I know when to close the poll. I have about 11 people left. Okay, I haven't had any movement for about 20 seconds, so I'm going to close this poll and I will share the results. Our next poll, open. Do you think the city should pursue local property owner protections? I'm going to give it about 20 more seconds. I have 3 people that are currently in progress. I'll give them another 10 seconds and then we'll close this poll. All right, I'm going to close this poll. All right, our next question. Do you think the city should do nothing as it pertains to tenant and or property owner protections? I have a couple people still in progress, so I'm going to give it about 20 more seconds. Thank you for everybody's patience. I just want to make sure we give everybody ample time to find the field, click on the button so we can get as much data as possible. All right, I'm going to close this poll. All right, we have 6 more questions. This is a multiple choice, multiple answer question, so you can choose as many or as few as you like. Do you think the City of Ventura's housing services should pursue any of the below? I will give a little extra time here just to make sure everybody's able to read all of them in consideration of any notes you may have taken during this presentation. I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. Hopefully the Dodgers scored. Maybe that's why if you haven't started yet, maybe there's something exciting on the television. All right, I'm going to close this poll. All right, now these are some of our short answer questions. So we have 5 minutes each if you want. If I know everybody's done or I don't see any activity after about 20 seconds, I'm going to close the poll to be cognizant of everybody's time. And again, these will be each recorded and cataloged, but we're going to redact any names or if there's a cell number or anything, so your personal identity will be protected. Thanks again for your continued patience. I wanted just to take this time to share we will have 2 more in-person workshops. One will be November 7th, Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Westview Community Center, 247 West Warner Street, with English and Spanish live translation for the benefit of everyone attending, as well as one on Saturday, November 9th in person at Juana Maria Elementary. These are all on our website, by the way. I'm just taking up the time here while we wait for everybody to complete their answers. The Saturday workshop will be from 10 to 12 at Juana Maria Elementary on the east side. And one more virtual Spanish and English live translation for the benefit of all, November 14th, 6 to 7:30. And you can find ways to register on our website. Questions or concerns about those future workshops can be emailed to lrollins@cityofventura.ca.gov. I have about half of my attendees have completed their survey. Thank you so much for taking this time. I know your time is very valuable, and I am very aware the Dodgers are playing. So I really appreciate it. We all do here. I got 8 in progress, and on my time limit, I have just under 2 minutes. This is why we have baked in extra time for to 7:30, just to allow ample time to get everybody's feedback. So thank you again for your time. For my 7 attendees, now 6 attendees who are still in progress, you have 1 minute to finish your thoughts, and we'll continue on. We have 3 more questions after this that are short answer. To my 3 remaining attendees, you have 30 seconds. And as a reminder, when you're done, you click on the Submit button on the lower right-hand corner. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The poll is closed. My next question. If you are in favor of additional local protections for property owners and tenants, what do you envision? Just so you know, the following question, if you are not in favor, you have a field to answer in that capacity. All right, we're about halfway through our total time allotment. I have 8 people still working on their answer. Now 7. Thank you. And I just found out we're tied. So that's probably why some people haven't started the poll. Oh, there we go. Thank you. We have under 2 minutes to complete this poll. For my 4 attendees still in progress, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining. For my 2 in progress, you have just under 1 minute. Thirty seconds remaining to complete this answer. Five, four, three, two, and 1. All right. If you are not in favor of additional local protections for property owners, what do you envision, if anything? Again, when you are done typing your answer, you click on the Submit button on the lower right-hand corner of your field. We are nearing the 3-minute mark of remaining time, and I have about 11 people in progress with their comments. Thank you so much. For my 6 attendees still in progress, you have 2 minutes remaining for your time. Again, please click on the Submit button in the lower right-hand corner if you are done with your answer. One minute and a half remaining for my 4 attendees that are still in progress with their answer. 1 minute remaining for my 2. Thirty seconds remaining for my 1 attendee still in progress. Oh, got 2 now. 15 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you. Two more questions, and then we're done. The question being, do you think you know enough about your current legal rights as tenant or property owner? Why or why not? Have about 3 minutes left and 8 attendees in progress with their answer. For my 8 attendees, you have just over 2 minutes remaining to answer the question. Minute and a half for my 6 attendees that are still in progress. Again, you're going to click on that submit button on the bottom right-hand corner when you are done with your answer. 1 minute remaining. $30 for the 2 still in progress. $10 for my 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, y'all, we did it. Final question. Here we go. Share any additional feedback you would like to at this time about any of the items you heard tonight. You know, we're trying to, again, gather as much feedback from the community as possible to present to our decision makers for their review and any consideration they do with that information moving forward. Have about 2.5 minutes remaining. We're at the halfway point. Minute and a half for my 17 people still in progress. Just under a minute for the 14 in progress. Thirty seconds remaining. Ten seconds. Hurry, hurry, hurry. 2, 1. All right. That concludes our polling questions. So I'm going to pass it back to Leona and or Rachel to talk about next steps. Again, please make note of the email of lrollins@cityoventura.ca.gov for any additional feedback to share. And just to make note, we have 2 in-person workshops, Thursday, November 7th at 6 p.m. at the Westview Village Community Center, 247 West Warner Street. We have one on November 9th, Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Juana Maria Elementary School on the east side, I believe off Kimball. And then we have another virtual workshop, English, and all these 3 workshops are going to be English and Spanish dual language. So no matter your language preference, you will be able to understand. And that November 14th virtual workshop is Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. Please register online. And I'll pass it back to Leona and Rachel. Thank you.
So first and foremost, we would like to thank everyone for participating with us this evening. And just to note that the comments and information that we received during the polling exercise will be transcribed electronically and cataloged. The information will be made available to the public on the city's website in December of this year. And the information will be reviewed for common themes, ideas, and requests that will be presented to Planning Commission and City Council for direction on how to proceed. As Maruha mentioned, you can feel free to email either myself, Rachel, or Maruha with any additional comments or feedback that you would like to share with us regarding the workshop, the various topics that we discussed, or any other comments that you would like to share regarding this process. And finally, if you would like to provide any additional feedback via our website, we do have a website where we have feedbacks and comments available in both English and Spanish at our website. So there is our website link there that takes you directly to the feedback card, but also you can access our website through cityoventura.ca.gov/TPOW, which will lead you to our landing page for tenant and property owner collaborative workshops, where you can register or tell your friends and family to register for upcoming workshops, pre-submit questions, or complete our feedback card. And I would like to thank you once again. This does conclude our workshop for this evening. Feel free to go ahead and email us with any questions or concerns, or fill out our feedback card. And I hope that everyone has a great rest of their evening, and go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers!